Hey, welcome back to another episode of Roof Talk with Andy. Today's topic, we're talking about creating rapport with your customers. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Welcome to another Friday, guys. Happy to be at the end of the week here. I felt like we had a good week. We accomplished some stuff. How did you guys do this week? Just a question if, did you make it a successful week? Did you make it a progressive week? Comment down below. I'd like to hear some things that you had that you made progress on, maybe some failures you had. Did you learn something this week? That's all good stuff to know. So just thought I'd ask that and throw that out there. So creating rapport with your customers. Merriam-Webster defines rapport as friendly, harmonious relationship characterized by agreement, mutual understanding, and empathy that makes communication possible or easy. We all want that with our customer, right? And Google defines it as close, harmonious relationship in which the people concerned understand each other's feelings, ideas, and communicate well. And once again, we want to have that with our relationship with our customers. So I found when I went to do this video today that a lot of the stuff that I've developed to learn how to talk and develop rapport with a customer over the last few years is I think it just comes natural to me now. It didn't early on, but there's a lot of things that I do that I just don't realize it doesn't come natural for other people. So not that a lot of things come natural to me, but this particular subject does. And so I kind of want to walk through the steps of what I do when I talk to a customer so that I can get that relationship and that rapport and that trust started right at the very beginning. And so step one is right on the initial call. So on the initial call, the call comes into us. This might come to you in your cell phone if you're a one-man show or just a small company. But for us, it comes into our front desk. Samantha at our front desk is our administrative assistant, and she takes the phone call. And there's some questions on there that she asks customers on that first phone call. But the main one is, how did you hear about us? And so that really helps us to find out where our marketing is working right. And but it also tells us, what kind of advertising, what kind of marketing that particular customer is responding to. Does he respond to direct mail? Does he respond to billboards? Does he respond to social media? And that right on the face of it will tell me a little bit about the customer. And there's also some questions in there that she will ask about what type of project is this? What kind of business is ran in this company, so that we can, agriculture farm is going to be a little bit different than a tool and die shop, which is going to be a little bit different than a bank. So that will help me right on the face of it to get to know a little bit about this customer that I'm dealing with before I actually even make the call to talk to him personally. So step two, the follow-up call. And this is where I will take the number and I will call the person back and introduce myself. First, I do some before I make this call, I do some background on that person or the company. I want to know that when I'm going to be talking to Mike from ABC Plastics company, that I can know a little bit about his company, maybe how big he is, where he's located, what the shape of the building is, and stuff like that. So that when I talk to him, he kind of already feels like I'm not starting from ground zero, and it's good to know a little bit more, like you got a picture in your mind about that customer when you're talking to them. That really helps to build that rapport when you're talking to them on the phone. So then in the call, I say things like, so your last name's Klotz. Are you related to the Klotzes in Shelby? Or, are you related to, sometimes you'll hear a last name that might be ring a little bit of a familiarity to you, and you can ask, oh, you're so-and-so, do you related to so-and-so? And that comes up more often than you would think so. But obviously don't use it with a name like Peterson, because there's a zillion Petersons. But if it's a name that you think that is something that maybe not a lot of people, you can use that as a ground zero for familiarity to breed that rapport. Another one is if you want to remain a little more generic, you can say, how's the weather there? Man, it's, snowing like crazy here, or it's raining like crazy. We've got a lot of rain. And then that'll actually help them to open up to describe, what kind of weather you have in there. Well, we've had a ton of rain in the last few days, and yada yada yada, and that'll help them to open up. It's a little bit of an icebreaker, and you just want to create some small talk there. If they're related to the metal industry or the the oil industry, you can maybe probe and say, how's the recent fluctuations in prices affected you guys. If, you don't want to make it rigid, like you just want to make it like you're talking to a buddy. So so that's on the follow-up call. And then when I do my follow-up meeting with the actual meeting where I at their business and doing their sale, this is where I really try to gain more traction on the relationship. And that is, I try to observe things, whether you're on the outside of the building or you're in their, they're in their front foyer, front desk, or if you're in the boss's office. Try to make observations of your surroundings. So, for example, let me talk about if you're in the boss's office or the owner's office, you're going to want to look for things like pictures. You're going to want to look for things like collections of something. Maybe the guy collects, weather vanes, or he collects. I had one guy that he collected. He had a trucking company, so he collected hats from every other trucking company that he did business with, or other businesses that he had shipped to and did business with, and he had hundreds of hats around the top of the wall in his office. And so you want to take mental notes of these things. So like pictures and collections, hobbies. Maybe you see a set of golf clubs sitting in the corner, or you see climbing equipment sitting on the chair or something like that. Just things that are out of the ordinary that you can build a little bit of a conversation on. And that's always great to, get off the subject of work, get off the subject of the roof at the moment, and just talk about personal stuff. And that will really create a rapport among you. As a side note, I have this written here, but I used to carry my dog with me all the time. I usually do in the summer. I got a little dachshund. She rides in the truck with me. And you wouldn't believe how many people, I'll get out of the truck and they'll meet me. And then either at the beginning of the appointment or after the appointment, they'll see my dachshund and they'll get all, ooh, what's her name? Oh, she's so cute. And then she's, wanting to get her out of the truck and play with her. And you wouldn't believe the demeanor that changes from a person once they, start petting the dog and get to know her name. And then all of a sudden their demeanor is just a little bit different when they're talking to me at the end. And so that's great. You probably don't want to do that with, a big dog or a aggressive looking dog, but it worked for me with my little dachshund. So one example of a job that I looked at that was rather large, I had gone into, we sat in the conference room and he had antique tractor seats around the wall. And so I had just mentioned that, hey, that's really cool. You got old tractor seats. And I was raised on a farm myself. And so I just elaborated on that a little bit, about tractors and what I liked about tractors and my enjoyment of working on the farm. And that led us into a little bit of a conversation, not a super long, but a little bit of a conversation. And it helped me to relate, hey, I was a farmer, you're a farmer, we kind of come from the same place. So you got to use what background you have, what little benefits that you have in connection with the person to be able to build on that rapport. And then another place, like I said, the trucking company had the hats, and we built on talking about that and how I like hats. I like different logos on hats and how that's pretty cool. So another thing you can talk about is their truck. Their truck or their building, specifically their truck. If they're a Ford man and you're a Ford guy or whatever, people are proud of their truck. So sometimes you can expound on that and get a little bit of conversation going there. And then this leads me to my follow-up. So follow-up I do with try to follow up with that customer at least once a week, maybe just a little bit less, but at least once a week, and just say, hey, I gave you that quote, the information, does it look good? And I always try to come back with that follow-up call with another piece of information. So I'll take that particular job with the tractor seats. So, I'd call them back about every 5 or 6 days. And in between there, I had talked to another customer named Jim. And I always ask people at the beginning, this is another critical little thing you can do. I always ask people that are business owners, how did you get started in this? And they'll usually tell you a little story. Well, I started in such and such a town, or I did this, I worked for somebody. And in this particular situation, Jim told me, well, I'm from such and such a town, and I was on the school board there. And I said, oh, that's funny. You know, Mr. Keith was on the school board in that town, and well, I know Mr. Keith. You know, he said I know him, blah 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 blah. And then Jim ends up saying, you know, tell Mr. Keith you're quoting a job for me too, and that you do a great work, and yada 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 yada. And so even though he hadn't really worked with me before, he knew me. I went back and talked to Mr. Keith and said, you know, Jim said to tell you hi. I know Tim, and we worked together a little bit, and he's from my town. And just even though I hadn't done work for either one of these guys yet, it built a rapport that, hey, Mr. Keith knows Jim, and I know Jim, and now all of a sudden we have a kind of a circle of people that we know. I know the same people that you know. And so just that little nugget, and if you start putting them little seeds out there, you'd be amazed at how many people actually have connections with each other. So I'm going to leave you with a couple of points here. Number one, I always ask a business owner, how did you get started in this? And another one you could ask is, what made you decide upon this occupation? Or, you know, what have you found made you so successful to build this up to where it is? And I'm going to tell you, people love bragging about their business, whether they're doing well that year, or they're not successful, or they're really successful. They'll love to tell you their story and their success. And that in itself is the golden nugget of how you build rapport with the customer. Sitting back and listening to their story and how they built their business. So I know this is a little bit longer video than normal today, but this is one of the subjects that I love. I love building a rapport with the customer and building that relationship so that they can trust me. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Like and subscribe our channel on YouTube. It really helps us to grow it and to share other guys that might be struggling with this particular concept. And hope you have a great weekend.